Hello, Hecate devotees, witches, and fellow occultists alike out there. Today's video is Sex Magic Part 2, the deities role. I'm going to state briefly why some people would invoke a deity or spirit into the bedroom or use them in sex magic. Then I'm going to talk about the history and some uses and maybe a personal experience in there. So, one of the many reasons throughout history that deities were invoked in the bedroom was for fertility purposes, for rebirth purposes, the union of the earthly plane, like a king, and the heaven, the gods, also for personal power. So there's many different reasons why in ancient history people have used deities in their sexual magic practices. So let's talk about the history. So according to Herodotus in Babylonian times, there was a law where women would have to congregate on the steps of Aphrodite temple, and they'd sit there. This is like all women of society. I didn't see an age on there, what time, like in a woman's life this started, but all women of the village ended up going to the Aphrodite steps. She would sit there, and a stranger would approach her and toss coin at her lap and state the phrase, I invite you in the name of Melidia. And this would signal to her that he wanted to copulate with her on the steps of Aphrodite. So they'd go off, and then she'd be able to be released from her duty and then go back home and live her life. So Herodotus did state that there were a couple women that would have to go back for months periods of time sitting on the step waiting because they were homely looking. And, but he also stated that women of high power had to do this too. So they'd show up in huge carriages and with the most beautiful decorations to make sure that they were, taken. I didn't read whether there was a set price or maybe they negotiated, but that was the law in ancient Babylon. So in ancient Sumeria, the kings, they were considered the living embodiment of their gods. So the high priestess of Ishtar, who is the goddess of war and sex and love and victory and fortune, she would embody the goddess during a certain ritual. The king would embody the god. Their union would copulate heaven on earth, basically. Egyptians did this too. So this tradition was carried forth of the invoking of the goddess or god, both into each partner and both coming together to signify the union. In Mayan and Incan culture, there was a religious sect that was devoted to the phallus and fertility in that aspect. And so because men carry the phallus, they would have homosexual interactions in some of their priest unions to signify certain rites. So I found that interesting because you always hear about, opposite couples. So it's nice to hear that. Well, of course, Greeks and Romans did something very similar. So in ancient Hindu culture through China and India, it's right there on the border, Kathmandu, they believed in the spirit of the Dakini. And the Dakini is a female spirit who feeds on flesh. They've been known to, of course, consume flesh, but they're more known for sexual union flesh. There are tales of men having sexual congress with the dakinis to get knowledge from them, because they will be your protector and care for you and give you knowledge. But in the same instance, they can be very jealous and really mess with your life if you do not appease them right. As a matter of fact, I would definitely say, when you're dealing with any deity or spirit, um, connection and jealousy may not be a factor because they're gods, but definitely some spirits, demons, angels, any earthly or in between variations usually have human feeling and attachment, which is why you have that union of knowledge and earthly affair. So that was just a warning. If you're, gonna do anything, be very respectful. I always say this in my video because, people just think, oh, I just want the power, but this is not, what this is for. This is for learning and growing and getting to that next level of knowledge inside yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about succubus. This is an incubus. During English church times, Puritan 1700s, when people didn't understand what was going on with their bodies and it was very wrong to lust, a lot of times people would see entities over them, succubus in particular, which means to lie beneath, because a dominant, powerful woman who had sexual energy and lust was considered something bad during that time. So, a dude sitting there having a wet dream about a lady, oh, it's a succubus coming to get me. But I do believe that there are variations of demons out there, or entities, elementals, that would be considered the real true name of a succubus or incubus, but I'm just briefly touching over history here. Okay, so with all that said, let's talk about some reasons for inviting a deity into your bedroom, or different variations. So there is, sorry, there's a fly in here. There is a astral deity connection where it's you as a person, the deities on the astral plane, they are your lover, and there's physical tie as far as feeling and vibration and energy, but there's not a physical being there that you are copulating with, unless of course you take a fetish, a doll or a phallus, and use it in instruments. But my point is that astral, I have heard of people having astral relationships with their deities, and having sex that way with them, and they're not invoking the deity into them, but their mind is on that as a relationship. So that's one form. Another form would be invoking the deity into yourself or spirit to learn and exchange that way, because when you are having sexual congress with somebody, you are exchanging information, spiritually, bodily fluids, emotionally. So when you are making a vessel open, you are the vessel, and you are making the entity or spirit come into you. That's one form of relationship. I'll touch later on that. And of course, there's partnership invoking deities. For example, let's say I wanted to be with my partner. We both wanted to learn about our deities, and our deities happen to have a sexual relationship in the myths. For example, let's say I was picking Freya and my partner was picking Odin. In the myths, they're naturally together, so you're invoking each, and I would be learning from her, he'd be learning from him, but at the same time, the love of the gods themselves are present in each other in each vessel. Me a vessel, him a vessel, coming together for union. So there's partnership, invoking deities, which is a great benefit because not only are you learning from your spouse or partner, but you're also learning from the deity themselves being inside you, what they like, what they need, and vice versa, from that partnership and union. All right, so there's all that lovely jazz. So some reasons why people would invoke deities into the bedroom. So there's fertility rituals. For example, some of Celtic rituals, you'd have like the hunter and the huntress, two different strangers masked coming together for copulation of the entire community, or the whole community dressing in masks and going and fornicating out in the fields to get fertility in the fields and sexual rites of that magnitude, not just for the community, but for bringing in new blood. So that's just one form. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I've read people using certain demon forms, and angel forms. I've heard people do both, to gain sexual knowledge of themselves as well as prowess over other people. For example, using the spirit daemon Zephyr, you'd get the ability to have sexual conquest over others. When somebody isn't willing to come to you, you can use this particular energy to pull them forward. Or using the demon deity Satiri, am I saying it right? I hope so. Who would grant you the ability to lure people in and be irresistible. And I wanted to bring this up in the two difference here, because with Satiri, you would abstain from sex to get this this boon, this grant. And whereas Zephyr, you would go out and just pull in all that lust from anywhere you could. So I wanted to state that abstinence does have its place when working with certain deities and aspects. For example, if I was going to do a ritual to Venus, I would abstain from eating meat because those are her babies. And I would probably abstain from sexual union for a while until I got where I was, because certain deities work better with pure energies rather than lustful energies, and some deities work better with lustful energies than they do with purer energies. So that's something to consider. I wanted to say one personal story, and it's not, I should have maybe added this in the love spells, but because it has to do with my deity, I decided to save the story. So, with Hecate, I love her like a mother. She's always been my mother. And so when I was doing this ritual, there in the Greek magical pottery, there's a love spell that you would do. And it was to bond a lover to you. So what I would do is take that and do it with Hecate. Not as a lover, but I knew I just wanted that love and that connection with her. So there are times where you can use love spells with deities. I wouldn't do it on trying to fall in love per se with one, but there is that aspect out there. There is that idea that you can bond yourself with your deity via or another spirit with a love spell. So that being said, I grew with her in, in my heart, not, and a lot of that lust that I had in my life had left, and I focused, and it was really good in that aspect of working out for me. I hope that this video you find interesting and that you enjoy the history aspect and my weird little personal stories. I just hope you get inspired and learn something new, or think about your life and go, hey, maybe I could try that. Anyway, enjoy your week. Have a good one. Bye.